I don't enjoy hurting people. The only thing I want is be the best in the world.
From the producer of Fahrenheit 9/11 and the director of Generation Iron comes an exploration of the most controversial sport in the world.
It's natural. We're all compelled to do it.
It's gonna keep getting bigger.
The Hurt Business.
Hi, I'm Jerry Brainum. I'm here to answer more questions. And today's question will be this one. Does muscle memory really exist? Now, I've been working out for a long time. I mean, I've been working out probably longer than I'd say most of the viewers watching this have been alive. And I've heard that term muscle memory all my life. Since I began training, I've heard the term muscle memory. Now, what it implies is that muscles somehow have memory. And at first, this doesn't make sense. I mean, the memory site is the human brain. How can it, since muscles don't have brains, how could they possibly have a memory? Well, the word memory would have to be in parentheses because, or I should say quotation marks, because muscle actually does have a memory. And let me explain how this works. First of all, muscle cells are the biggest cells in the body. Normally, a normal cell only has one nucleus. The nucleus is a little bit beyond the scope of this video, but it has to do with maintaining the cellular health involved in the replication of new cells and so on and so forth. Most of what happens in a cell happens in the nucleus. It's where DNA works and all that. The muscle cells are, again, the largest cells in the body, and unlike other cells, muscle cells have many nuclei. And the term for the muscle nuclei or nucleus are myonuclei. And that's an important point because muscle cells are, the scientific term being multinucleated. They have many nuclei. Now, what happens when you work out and you damage your muscle? And that's what happens when you work out with weights, for example. You're damaging your muscle fibers. And the body responds, if you give it enough rest and you follow proper nutritional principles, such as eating enough protein and that type of thing, your body responds by an adaptation process that involves first a localized inflammation, where there's a migration of white blood cells to clean out the debris left by the damage to the muscles incurred by exercise. That process is called autophagy. And this is followed by a system which these white blood cells, or I should say immune factors, that migrate into the injured muscle cells, they send messages or signaling that involves the recruitment of certain hormonal substances, such as localized insulin-like growth factor 1 and others, such as mechanical growth factor. It's a little complicated, and I won't get into it too much. I don't want to, make person's head explode, all that stuff. But suffice to say that the main way your body deals with let's say damaged muscle fibers is to recruit muscle stem cells that lie just outside the muscle or in what they call the basal lamina. I'm not going to get into anatomy here, but these muscle stem cells are referred to as satellite cells. Now, when the satellite cells are recruited, they kind of get incorporated into what they do is they get incorporated into the muscle fibers, and by doing so, they contribute new myonuclei. In other words, it actually adds extra nucleus to the muscle cells, myonuclei. The myonuclei, in turn, are able to increase the level of muscle protein synthesis, and the net effect is a body adaptation of muscle hypertrophy or increased muscle size. Now you say to me, well, okay, this is all interesting, or maybe not, depending on your point of view, but what does all this have to do with muscle memory? Very simple. I'll explain. When you work out, it's a common observation. I mean, no matter how big your muscles are, if you work out and you stop training, if you lay off, and you're not supplying any type of exercise stimulus to your muscles will eventually shrink or atrophy, because muscles have to have constant resistance to either gain muscle size or maintain muscle size. In other words, it's the use it or lose it principle. And this is the use it or lose it principle affects every cell in the body, from your brain to your toes to your skin, everything, including muscles. If you don't use your muscles, they disappear. It's that simple. Now, when your muscles shrink, however, and this is what wasn't known years ago, the muscle fibers themselves might actually atrophy. But previously, it was thought that when muscle cells atrophy, the new myonuclei that was established previously by the process I talked about earlier is abolished. In other words, they thought the extra myonuclei disappear, and because of the disappearance, your muscle synthesis processing goes down, and your level of catabolism goes up. That's another story. But the point being that they recently found in the past couple of years that even though your muscle fibers shrink, the myonuclei do not disappear. They kind of get dormant. They stay there. So what happens, and remember, the myonuclei are the source of muscle protein synthesis. This is the thing that makes your muscles get bigger and stronger. So what happens is, if you've laid off for a while, your muscle fibers will shrink or atrophy. Your myonuclei remain. How long do they remain? They think they could stay there as long as 15 years or more. But there's one problem. As you get older, let's say past 50, well, it's actually a little older. Let's say past 60 years of age, for some unknown reason, the body can't tap into the myonuclei with the same efficiency as it did when you were younger. So it's a little bit harder to regain lost muscle when you're, let's say, past 60 years of age. Let's say if you laid off for a year or so, it's going to take you a lot longer to regain lost muscle. However, if you're younger than that, those dormant myonuclei, as soon as you start working out again, it's like they're turned on. The myonuclei are turned on. Once they're turned on, the muscle protein synthesis, let's say, machinery starts turning on, and the muscles return to their former state. This, in essence, is what muscle memory is. So, based on what I just told you, you now understand that muscle memory is a real phenomenon. Now, there's a different effect with steroids, and I'm going to get into that in a different video. But for now, suffice to say that muscle memory is real. And if you want to learn more about muscle memory, including all the technical nuances, which I was unable to discuss here, because frankly, it would take about an hour and a half to get into every detail, you can read about it in my Applied Metabolics newsletter at www.appliedmetabolics.com. I also cover nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging, hormonal therapy, fat loss research, and many other subjects. Thank you for listening. Bodybuilders, believe it or not, they are more analytical than the athletes. The bodybuilders want to know, what does this vitamin do? How will it help me build muscle? The athletes just say, will it make me faster, stronger, whatever? Boom, they take it. That's all they want to know. When I work with boxers, I work with a lot of the fighters that weren't heavyweights. You have to make weight, just like the MMA guys and the fighter.